Okay, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm in my home of the internet, where I live now, where everyone lives now because of the pandemic. And I have three people on the show, which is always nice. It's often hard to talk to a full band of people on this podcast the way I do it now because people are scattered. A lot of people don't even have time to rehearse together in this weird time. But the guests on this show have a new record coming out and a lot of exciting things leading up to that record. And I guess before we even get started, like, this album is something that's not coming out right away, from what I understand. It's going to be a long time before people hear the full thing, but there's some really cool stuff kind of in the lead up to it. So I think that the best way to start this off is if the three of you can introduce yourselves, what instruments you play, and then we can take it from there. So we'll start with Raine because the album is under your name.
Sure.
So
Hi. Thanks so much for having us, Sam. This is the best.
Well, thanks for doing it.
My name is Raine Hamilton, as you know, the rumors are true. And I am a singer-songwriter and chamber folk artist based in Winnipeg, Manitoba here. And I play the most often with these fine collaborator pals of mine, also on the call.
Cool. So who else do we have here?
Nat?
Nat, go for it.
Yeah, Nat, you go first, yeah.
My name is Natanielle Felicitas, and I'm a cellist. And yeah, I've been working.
Oh, I think we got a freeze here.
I think.
Yeah, you're back. You came back, yeah.
I'm back? Okay.
Yeah.
I've been collaborating with Raine for, I guess 5 years or so, maybe longer. And
cool.
It's super fun. Yeah.
And I'm Quintin Bart, playing double bass and hurdy-gurdy with the Raine Hamilton band. And it's been many years, maybe over 10 years I've known Raine.
I think our collab started 2013. I just was doing some math earlier.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah.
That's a long time. I mean, that's a long time to be working together for sure. So I think that, we need to maybe explain what is happening with this album, because, I talked to a lot of people on the show they say, yeah, we're about to release a record and it comes out like the next week or a month later or something. But this is a long drawn out process from what I understand. So what is the backstory here?
Sure, I can speak to that. The plan for the release has really been informed and changed by the pandemic, as so many things, of course, have. So up until very recently, the most typical thing to do in the music industry would be to release an album and singles and other content leading up to the full release in conjunction with touring, so that you have something to organize your touring around and promote, and it makes the most sense logistically when touring is possible. But now, touring is not possible, and that changes a lot of things. And I think of this saying that my mom says, where a knife, if you pick it up by the blade, it will hurt you, but if you pick it up by the handle, it's a tool.
Okay.
And I think
that's
the situation, right? Where the typical thing is not possible, but other things are possible. So having created this album, having been on a timeline for releasing it, the plan has changed a lot. And so instead of organizing our releases around touring, we are going to spread them out more evenly and really focus on a digital-based campaign for releasing that allows, I hope, just better connection online and really working on ways to connect with people through that digital medium.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to hear you're being creative about it, because I think a lot of people, and even people I've had on this show, have been kind of just sort of stuck and not knowing what to do in this situation, where some of them have a record that's ready to go, they have boxes of it sitting in their basement, and they just can't think of a way to properly get it out there, because no one can come see them and no one's really leaving their house. I mean, I've been in my basement for months, right? it's such a weird situation we're in. But so coming up very soon, you're going to be doing a live performance online that will kind of showcase some of this material, right?
Yeah, this is the plan. So the hope is that the restrictions will be such that it will be considered safe to do that, and that following the regulations that are in place, that we'll be able to rehearse. Quintin, do you want to talk about your rehearsing ideas? Because we've had to get creative for safety.
I imagine, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, at the moment, my living situation has a bit of extra room, shall we say. Former housemates, have gone on their way and so on, and just me and my partner here living in our place, but it means that there's like a lot of empty space. So we have one rather large room, which could be distance-wise, could be ideal for having a
Cool.
little trio rehearsal, and then just hatching plans on what we can do for making some ventilation improvements and some screens and shields and all that kind of fun stuff, which if it makes sense safety wise, it could be a lot of fun, to actually in person make some strings vibrate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time that you were all together playing in the same room?
It must have been
like indoors. Yeah,
indoor.
Because we did have some outdoor rehearsals in July.
Right.
I guess maybe in the summer we were finishing up some recording things.
Yes.
When the situation was quite chill.
Yeah.
In Winnipeg. I think ages ago.
Well, can I pipe up about the rehearsal
Sure.
space? Like, we're trying to figure out how to do it now with like maximum space between us. And the writing process for this, which was also at Quintin's, was in the complete opposite of that. He built a room within a room.
Okay.
Called the Octagon. It's an octagon. And there was less than 2 feet between us, I think. So we were all facing each other, really cozy, creative space. And to think that now we're like, how do we stay away from each other?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great music.
Does the familiarity you have with each other just from having worked together for so long, does that help for something like this, when you know that you might have to just take advantage of a few weeks of being able to practice together, and then things might change again, right, where you're have to be distanced again? Does that did you feel like, I'm sure you must feel comfortable enough with each other at this point that you can just kind of get together when you're able to, and it'll still sound good, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of trust, and like I never feel like I have to worry about anyone coming prepared with their parts. It's like we all come prepared. So,
and you two know them so deeply.
So that's a good thing to have, right? For sure.
Every step. Yeah.
One of the things for this this project, we in the summer, just a few blocks from where I am, a friend Zore was putting on this concert series called The Red House.
I was at your show.
There. Yeah.
I was at your show. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, but no, please go on, because I was going to ask you about that anyway. So yeah.
Well, like it just brought to mind like the last time kind of preparing these pieces, these new tunes that are on the record. We did a couple of tunes live, the debut of the live pieces, and just fun thinking about because the rhythm of this whole project, this whole album, has been kind of unusual, and also like the gestation of the intricate parts, especially I'm thinking of the cello and bass part, cello and bass parts for me and Nat, which kind of puzzle piece together. A lot of the things would just kind of come together in the recording studio, and getting the final shapes decided pretty much day of, kind of taking the takes and so on. And then it was quite fun in preparation for that summer concert to like, oh yeah, what did we do? Like that sounds pretty tricky, and having to kind of relearn what we had created months before, and it sort of like has that rhythm for me, at least, like keep revisiting these arrangements and these kind of fun 3-person roller coasters that we created.
Well, I was going to ask about that show, the Red House show, because I mean, first of all, I was there, and it was nice to hear some of that new material. And it was, at the time, no one really knew what was going to happen with the pandemic, and obviously things got worse before they're going to get better. But how long have these songs been around? I mean, if you're playing them back then, and that was fairly early on in this weird situation we're all in, so obviously they'd been written well before that. Like, how long have you been sitting on this collection, this body of work, and still not having the opportunity to release it?
Sure, I can speak to that. First, maybe it makes sense to just speak a bit to our process and to how that all works. Hey, I would say it's been a long time in the works, and some of those songs has been a couple years in the works until they reached this product at the end here. And typically our process has been that like I will come up with this song and then we will just like sit with it all together. And then do y'all want to just describe the magic that happens then after that? I bring it, I sing it. Then what
Sometimes
happens?
yeah, it's funny to have the words to describe this process. But I don't know. Quintin, do you have words?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got words. I love it. I love the arranging thing. Like there's a after doing this together for so long, we kind of have our own method, I think. So often Raine comes with the the lyric and the melody and the mood and the reason why this song is.
Okay.
And then usually like a basic chord structure as well. And then we just experiment and like, try and keep an open mind and sort of reach for ideas that you can kind of almost hear, but maybe you can't quite. And then just try like many different variations. And then sometimes you put it down and revisit it in the next rehearsal and so on. And it can take quite a long time to sort of like unearth the character of each piece and that kind of thing. But and kind of coming to this constant like discussion and also like we record ourselves in this early process, the experimentation, which is really important to kind of give some type of objectivity, because when you're trying to play something that's just say maybe technically challenging, it takes a lot of brain power in the moment, and you might not necessarily be able to judge if that's serving the song. But it's kind of just like this back and forth of experimenting, trying ideas, and then like reevaluating, and it just sort of continues all the way into the recording studio.
Is there a point where the song is done? I mean, this maybe is a question for all three of you. With all that experimentation and kind of reworking it and recording yourselves and listening back, at what point do you decide that a song is finished or is ready to go in its current iteration, I guess?
Tough question.
Is there like a light bulb moment that comes up when you sort of realize, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, or are they always shifting and then evolving?
I feel like one thing that we've sort of honored in this trio configuration is like we want to be able to play it live as well. So I think that the way the album's produced and the arrangements that we decide on kind of inform that. So we're not giving ourselves like too many things to handle like once we get to the live show. But I don't know, maybe it's worth mentioning Lloyd Peterson in this process too, of like, because some songs really changed that, like once you have that outside, that objective view, like Quintin said, when we're recording ourselves, that's one of them, but then having like those expert ears and experience of Lloyd.
Peterson is expert ears and producer engineer of the record.
Producer engineer, yeah. So that, I think that kind of helps. It's like, are we done? Like the three of us could like meticulously pick mixes apart, and Lloyd will be like, this is, this is ready, this is cooked.
Which on that note, like we really did have a lot of fun putting Lloyd to the test, especially like, just discussing like this tiniest little microcosm of like a short note.
So I would say we are detail oriented people.
But we would all come to a consensus eventually and get that, premium moment after moment. It's amazing working with someone like Lloyd as well.
When you have songs that you've had, you played together for years and years, do those also develop over time when you're playing them live? Do you add things or change them, or once you have sort of a definitive version of the song, do you keep it kind of in the state you have it finished in, if that makes sense?
I've noticed refinements happen. I think that overall we end up sticking pretty close to what we end up with, and I think that the reason that ends up being the case is because we're really tuned in, I think, to, you could call it like the spirit of the song or like the integrity of the song, and that we're making artistic choices in service to that. And the experience for me of writing is often like a feeling like the steward of this song that that shows up to me in some way, and I feel like responsible to it, and I know that Nat and Quintin, you guys just are on the same page about that, and we're working to do really right by these songs. So because I think that's our priority of just really noticing with integrity and intuitively like trying and sensing and like really feeling what works the best, that leads us a really good way that I think feels really solid. So things have rarely radically changed, but I have noticed you two do refinements, and I have noticed Quintin like show up having figured out a way to play a run in harmonics or something outrageous.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
But one thing that surprised me with this process for this album, this is the second album with this trio that's that we've made, and it actually shocked me how fast it came together. Like from the writing, well, the songs like Raine had the songs written, but the arrangements, it's like I almost didn't even believe that I'd be able to do it that fast, and then it just happened. It was, and I think that it's the years working together, that trust that we have, the willingness to experiment.
Our instrumentation too.
What's
Maybe
that?
Not everyone would know that.
Well, I guess that kind of actually leads into what I was going to ask. Is just what is it about the three of you that with your respective instruments that clicks so well? Well, why do you work so well together? And because there's a lot of people who play all of the instruments you play, maybe not hurdy-gurdy as much, but the other instruments, there's other musicians out there, right? And so the three of you obviously work well together, or you wouldn't have been doing it for this long. So is there something kind of particular about the three of you that meshes well sonically, that just makes this continue to work year after year?
I think it's the classic like SATB choral situation, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And between the lot of what we do, we've got that covered. So we've got Quintin and the double bass on the bass, Nat and the cello in the tenor range. And then between my instruments of guitar, like violin / viola and voice, we've got the alto, soprano kind of range covered. So it gives us just a beautiful textural coverage of all that range and so much that's possible within it.
Yeah, and each of us also are like multi-genre musicians too. I think that really helps. Like just some strengths and weaknesses kind of get balanced out in this group because we've got different experiences and backgrounds that we're pulling from. So
one thing I wanted to mention, I don't want to dwell on the Red House show, but it was the last time I saw you guys live. And this is not a question, but I wanted to tell you this, that I was taking my kids to those shows all the time because it was, first of all, the pandemic's happening. You need to get out of the house. There's nothing going on. It's a weird time. And it was an opportunity to get them, hopefully cultured a little bit, listen to some music and some good music. And, a lot of the time they were kind of vaguely interested, but would be sitting there, drawing pictures or playing on a phone or something rather than paying full attention. But my oldest daughter, when she saw your set, she's middle school age, she absolutely loved it. Like she ended up borrowing the CDs afterwards, which was really cool. So whatever it is that I obviously liked it too, but whatever you did there definitely clicked with her more than with a lot of the other performers. And we went almost every time at the Red House. So that was very cool. I was neat to see that she was kind of really fascinated by what you were doing on stage. Whereas even some of the jazz performers and stuff, she was just kind of sitting there, off in dreamland. But this one, it really worked. So I don't know if that's maybe you have a potential to play for the tween audience, but it was cool. Yeah.
We welcome the tweens.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that kind of goes to another question, not the tweens, but who is your audience? And I think I may have asked you this before, Raine, when I had you on the show a few years ago. But do you have kind of a grasp on who your fan base is, and not necessarily like a specific age group or anything, but because what you do has, I think, a lot of appeal to a pretty wide range of listeners, and then you bring in aspects like the sign language, and there's do you have a grip on who's coming to your shows and who is listening to your music and maybe who you're making it for?
Oh, okay. Well, my sister explained this to me in a way that I really liked. She said to me, like, Raine, you're an indie movie. And I like that a lot. She says, like, you're not aiming to be like the blockbuster hit that's for everybody, that has the wide appeal. You are an indie movie. And that really resonates with me. My goal is to create art that is like transformative. And by that, what I mean is like my own transformation is expressed. So like the process of looking inside and then transforming and expressing internal world to external world, or the process of transforming like pain to curiosity to joy, or whatever the process is that is going on for me. That's what I'm interested in. And I'm interested in, yeah, like singing and writing in ways that celebrate like how cool life is and what just a rich and beautiful experience this is. So I would say probably we have like an indie movie type audience. And the people who I have had just the honor to speak with and connect with, who seem to really particularly dig what we do, are people who are really into feeling what the thing is about. So like this is such a profound honor of my life to be seen in this way and to have this art received in this way. When people will say to me, like, I listened to this when I was driving to the hospital every day to visit my mother as she's dying, or like I sent this to my friend who is experiencing this hard time, or just to know that people have felt seen and held by this in those kinds of times, in vulnerable times, is profoundly meaningful to me.
Is there pressure on you because of that, because of the fact that people are listening to it in such a serious, such a I guess, like, in-depth way? Is there pressure on you as a songwriter to continue generating that type of material with that level of emotion and depth to it?
Well, I think, like, did y'all listen ever to, as kids, to like Mr. Bach Comes to Call?
Yes, I did. I had the tape. Yeah.
Audiobook. Remember that? And remember when like there's a little line in that like audio play where Mr. Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, fictionalized for this children's audiobook, he says, like, all of my music I write for God. That's kind of how I feel. Like, I feel like I it is such an honor to me that this resonates in this way, and that is not like the intention of it. I can't explain the intention of it. It just shows up, It feels not always so much like something I'm doing as something that just shows up for me, and I'm going to do right by it.
Cool.
So I don't know. I don't know that I feel pressure per se, as I just want to honor what shows up.
Good way of describing it, I think. So people have probably, by the time this comes out, they would have seen a video you just released that was premiered on a UK website. Is that right?
That's right.
So how did that come about?
How did that come about? Well, we are working with just a fabulous team of publicists as part of our release plan, and that was through a connection they had. And I'm just so thrilled. I feel it's like a particular thrill because I did have some UK stuff on the books this spring that, of course, has like dissipated.
Yeah.
Who knows when that will happen, but it does feel nice to have that connection like rerouted kind of into this outlet.
What kind of responses have you? I know it's fairly recent, but just got released. But what's the response been?
It's been a really good response. Have you all had a chance to see some of the response?
Oh, like comments and such? Or I haven't.
So
no,
nice.
I haven't checked the comments, but
people are into it. I am very happy.
So how does this fit into the kind of overarching goal of this record, where you're going to be releasing songs sort of throughout the year? This is the first one, I take it, right? That's been sort of made public. So is this going to be like a monthly thing? What's the timeline?
It's going to be roughly monthly. There's 11 songs, and we'll release like roughly one a month. I think taking August off until January this time roughly next year, where we'll release the last one, and the whole album will be released.
Cool.
And we're going to release also like more videos like this one that has been released, and we have some plans to make some other videos, which I hope can go through.
Have you done videos before this?
We have.
Okay. I just haven't seen them, I guess. Yeah. No, it's a cool idea, though. I mean, especially because you're releasing it in such a non-traditional way, too, right? You're doing it online. You're doing it kind of slowly paced, and people clearly video is the way people are going in terms of what kind of content they want to see online. So it makes sense for sure. It's so I guess, like, when you're doing something that's this drawn out, obviously you've written these songs ahead of time, you've been working on them for a while, you have everything sort of, what you're going to be releasing. Is there any sort of plan as to how you roll it out in terms of representing the album as a whole, or are you just doing track by track on the order that they're listed on the album, or what's the sort of process for choosing which songs? It does
not go track by track. We, you know what? Honestly, it was just like that was a pretty business informed decision, to be honest, to make sure that we paced things out depending on what content we had to release with it at the same time. And I work with a fantastic management team. They're called Traverse Music Management, and My main manager there is Teresa Nelson, who is a longtime friend and also by now kind of a longtime manager of mine.
Cool.
And she's fantastic. So we parsed that out together and we hatched that business plan.
So when is the next one coming? Do you have a date for the next one now that the first one is into the world?
I think February 16th it comes, the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I guess it's kind of nice because you have something to look forward to every month or every few weeks or whatever, rather than just sort of the one date to look forward to, right? So
it's a real like continual spring in my step.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. So what is happening on February 5th? Do I have that day right?
Yeah. You do.
Okay.
That was the original date that we had planned to release the whole record back when Plan A was still a thing.
Okay.
Now we're into just like the wingdings of plans. It's not even letters anymore. Who knows what's happening? But we are aiming to do a show with the West End Cultural Center, co-presented by Home Roots. And like the plans are in the works. I don't mean to make that sound tentative, like this is a plan. And to do a live streamed show. And the WEC has been doing a really cool job of presenting some live stream shows. So I'm really, really happy to be able to benefit from their wisdom on that, especially Jorge, who does the booking there, who's also a filmmaker. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So depending on what is allowed and what is deemed to be safe and okay, either it will be the three of us performing spaced out in some kind of way in that space. Maybe it'll just be me performing. I hope that we can all be there.
Yeah.
Oh, team, I just hope that. I want that the most. And the plan is to play through the record.
So people will get a chance to hear it in that context before each individual song comes out, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that was the idea of it. I thought, I felt like a sense of like something was missing when we were hatching this plan about releasing it slowly over a year. And I thought, I want to show people I want to have this to offer as a listening experience, especially because it is conceived as an album, right? It is this concept album about mountains, and it makes so much sense together. And that's how we wrote it. So I wanted to have that to offer. So that's why we're going to do this sneak peek.
You just mentioned a concept album about mountains, and the only reason I'm laughing is because we're in Manitoba, which is like the least mountainy place ever. So, I mean, clearly you've obviously been to places with mountains, which is presumably giving you influence for the songwriting. But is it weird being like a Manitoba artist writing about something that we just don't have here?
Yeah, like it is very funny. And I've been writing a lot of bio content and stuff lately, and I do realize that it's hilarious, especially because the last two records that we've put out have been very, very prairie centered, with a ton of imagery of that place. And what happened is the more I toured, which I've been doing like pretty hardcore now for several years, the more places I got to connect to and see. And I just felt like there was so much from the mountainous places that was there to learn. And I just really, really wanted to soak in and sit in that. So I feel like I have had so much time steeped in the prairies and a lot of time to sit with that. And, there's infinity learning to do from everywhere. So I do not consider myself done. But these other places, I started to really feel animated by them, and also intrigued. Like I remember being in the town of Banff and asking directions, and someone says, "Oh, it's up the mountain and you turn left." I was like, "Up?" Like I didn't know what to do. I was like, "But when I leave the building, like which way do I turn?" And they said, "You turn up."
We don't have up here, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I do not know what to do with that information. It was very confusing. But that was intrigue. I was just like, "Oh, they have up here. What is up about?"
For sure.
And that's a lot what the record is about. Up. What does up have to teach us? What's going on there?
For the rest of you, I mean, does writing about mountains and performing songs that are, a very different type of subject matter than the last couple of records, is there difference in the way you're playing to kind of represent that sort of geography versus the wide open prairies?
Well, I was born and raised in Alberta, so I felt like
you're
it was
good then,
this.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I feel at home.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I feel like the themes sort of subliminally, for me anyway, inform the arrangements.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a conscious thing.
Yeah, I might say like a lot of the tracks have kind of maybe like a mystical quality to it, or some kind of type cinematic or like epicness at points, which in some sense, I kind of just feel, ups and downs in my experience of music, of all music, especially stuff that grabs me and moves me. It is sort of mountainous, or it can be. But some of these tracks, especially, I think, are maybe more evocative, or trying to create some really moving
drama.
gestures.
Yeah.
Cool.
Drama.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So because we're doing this on Zoom, they kick us out after a certain amount of time, and we're getting close to the time limit, unfortunately. But before we end it, how can people find out what's going on with this album and with these releases and the videos and all the things leading up to the eventual completion of the release?
Oh, amazing. Best place to find information is the website rainehamilton.com, and that's Raine, R-A-I-N-E, and Hamilton like the city.
Okay.
It's all on there. We're also on pretty well every surface of the internet, I think.
Yeah.
And the songs, as they trickle out, will be released pretty well everywhere imaginable.
Cool.
This is what I believe to be true.
Well, people find out, I guess, right? The good thing about this too, being a podcast, is someone could listen to it next week, or they could listen to it, a year from now, and by which point, hopefully, you're playing shows again and touring, and people can just pick up the record, immediately after listening to this. So it's one of the, I guess, the conveniences. Yeah. But for now, people should check out the live stream that's happening February 5th, and the video that just came out. And I'm assuming your old records are still floating around there in the world somewhere.
Oh yeah, they float.
Yeah. Right on. Well, yeah, I'm gonna before we get booted out and all of a sudden this just ends on an abrupt mid-sentence thing, thank you for coming and doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to the record. The songs I heard back in the summer at the Red House were great. The new ones, like I said, my kids like it too, so that's an added bonus. Maybe bring them out to a show at a real venue. Not a real venue sounds bad, because I love the Red House shows, but an indoor venue maybe. If
maybe there's walls, who knows?
Yeah, you never know. A roof could even happen. Yeah, but but yeah, I'm going to be watching and as these songs come out and listening, and hopefully a lot of other people will too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.